Good morning, everyone, and we're continuing our video discussions with researchers on Parkinson's. And today I am very, very happy to introduce you to Kevin Barnham, Professor Kevin Barnham, who's head of neurotherapeutics laboratory at the Florey. Did I say that right, Kevin?
Neurotherapeutics, yes, Jodette, that's fine, yes.
Right, well, welcome.
Thank you.
We always start with a nice opening question of tell us a bit about yourself.
A bit about myself. Okay. I'm a neurochemist. I worked on neurodegeneration for 20 years now. I was originally a trained chemist. I graduated from the University of Queensland in a different millennia. So, and right from the beginning, I've had an interest in drugs, therapies, and trying to find therapies for diseases. And as I said, for the last 20 years, that's been focusing on neurodegeneration, and obviously Parkinson's disease is one of those diseases that fits within that.
Right, great. So when did you become interested in Parkinson's research?
Well, 15 to 20 years ago, I was engaged by Colin Masters and his team here in Melbourne to look for drugs in primarily Alzheimer's disease originally, but as that work evolved, it became obvious to me that some of our molecules might have potential in Parkinson's disease, and through interactions with people like David Finkelstein here at the Florey, we learned more about mechanisms of the disease, the actions of our drugs, and realised that Parkinson's disease was very much a vital target for us.
Oh, indeed. So what is your research about? What's your current programs of research about?
Well, my interest, as I said, is new treatments, new therapies. And one of the interesting things about Parkinson's disease is that, James Parkinson first described this disease 200 years ago. And so we've had a lot of time to look into the disease. But the only really viable therapy is dopamine replacement, and that was developed in the 1960s. And so, there are no disease-modifying drugs, and so why do we have no disease-modifying therapies? I mean, and part of the reason for that is that the nature of the way that we design clinical trials is difficult, it's expensive, and look, there are a number of technical reasons which we may go into as the interview develops. But the obvious one was that by the time someone shows up in the clinic, 50 to 70% of the synaptic connections which are responsible for controlling movement are gone. And so trying to develop new drugs at that stage, it's like trying to shut the barn door after the horse has bolted. And so what I'm really interested in doing is trying to open up that window. So looking to see if we can identify people before the horse has bolted, while they still have viable synaptic connections, and seeing if that's a more valid time to treat people. And so that means we need to be able to identify people before they show up in the clinic with the motor phenotype, the motor dysfunction. So really focusing on that. And in Parkinson's disease, we're kind of lucky because it's obvious that there's a range of what we call premotor symptoms involving disruptions in hyposmia, which are sort of smell, which I know you spoke to Leah a week or so ago. There's disruptions to sleep. Number of people are constipated, and things like so. There's a raft of symptoms that people have that indicate that something is wrong. Now, any one of those symptoms on their own is not definitive for Parkinson's disease. So what we're really interested in doing and trying to develop is a suite of tools to look for a combination of those behaviours to see if we can predict someone that's going to develop full-blown, the motor dysfunction associated with Parkinson's disease.
Right. This is sounding very much like an early diagnostic testing regime.
Yeah. So if we have early diagnostic, the goal of opening up the therapeutic window, so treating earlier. So Parkinson's disease is a progressive disease, and obviously the sooner we can stop progression, the better the outcome is for patients.
Fantastic. Yes, we hear a lot from patients about their diagnostic journey, and so getting more information about those early stages
Mm-hmm.
and uh, a, a diagnostic framework, it sounds like you're developing, would be really, really valuable. So what would this tell us about Parkinson's and about people with Parkinson's?
Well, we know that the disease manifests over decades. And people can have probably the degeneration associated with the disease 10 to 20 years before they actually show up in the clinic. So, as I said, that is a goal, is to try and if we can develop therapies that stop that degeneration, we effectively prevent Parkinson's as we know it. So yeah, that is what we're trying to achieve. And to be brutally honest, the goal is to, so that Parkinson's disease doesn't become an issue. I mean, living with the motor symptoms is it's long and expensive, and it takes a toll on the patients and their families. You probably know this better than I do. Our goal is to prevent the disease effectively. And I believe that the tools, we're trying to build the tools that allow us to do that. I think the knowledge is there. What's interesting, if someone walks in off the street into our research environment, we can tell whether they have Parkinson's disease or not. But the tools that we use are not applicable to everyday clinical use. And so what we need to do is be able to build tools that allow us to do this on a broader population-wide basis. And one of our things that I think is the bowel screening program that all of us that have turned 50, we get a little package from the government, and I think that in a lot of ways is sort of the sort of thing that we're thinking of. People, once you hit 50 or thereabouts, that we build a protocol built around mostly online tools. That we can assess people's risk and thereby identify people who should go and see a neurologist or a movement disorders specialist. And we believe that's doable, that's achievable.
Right, great. So what are the next steps in your research to build these tools?
Get together a team of disparate people. So, as I said, one symptom will not do the job. Hyposmia, the lack of smell, that's actually quite prevalent. It happens as we get older. So we need to build a team, a team. So we need experts in sleep. We need experts in vision. We need experts in understanding motor function, and obviously smell. And we need to bring them together, and we need to coordinate them with IT, intellectual, artificial intelligence, etc. So it's about coordinating a collective effort and bringing people together, bringing a raft of experts together to create the tools required to do this, and engaging with government, etc. Because honestly, this will only work if we have a screening program. I mean, bottom line is people don't know they have these diseases until they walk into the clinic. What we're saying, well, that's too late. So that means we have to screen people beforehand, and that'll come with an education program, for instance, that will need to be, like we get educated now about being aware of, bowel cancer. Well, we need similar sorts of education. We'll need similar sorts of education programs built around Parkinson's disease and the other neurodegenerative diseases.
Yeah. No, that sounds really interesting. So, is there anything else you'd like to tell us about the research that you're doing, or other research at Florey that?
Well, I mean, obviously, we are actively engaged in seeking therapies, and those therapies are being looked at. Some of them are in the clinic. Unfortunately, not for Parkinson's disease, because of the difficulties in designing small-scale, early-stage clinical trials, because the risks of failure are very high, and when you've put a lot of effort into developing drugs, no one wants to risk their assets by putting them into trials that are likely to fail. So I think we need to build confidence in do that. Obviously, I'm also interested in Alzheimer's disease, and there are certainly a lot of crossovers in terms of the way we think about the nature of those diseases. Alzheimer's disease, I think, is also something that starts decades And I think if there's one takeaway message I'd like to leave you with today is that we think of these diseases as diseases of aging, of the aged, old people. These diseases start in middle age, late middle age. Right? There's and we need to be aware of that they do start in late middle age, in your 50s, and so these are not just diseases of old people.
Yeah, yeah. So they actually to start in your peak working period when you finish with childcare and you're drinking that superannuation away.
Well, I think
Building super. Yeah.
If we can identify them at that stage, it really does offer us an opportunity to make a major difference and intervene much earlier.
Right. So it sounds like we need some government support for this one.
Yes. I mean, I think we need a whole of sector support.
Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting. I was watching a movie on Apollo 13 the other day, and they talked about going to the moon. And one of the characters said, "We went to the moon because we could. We made the decision to go." And I think with Parkinson's disease, we just need to make the decision to solve this problem. I think the tools, the technology is there, the knowledge is there. We just need an all-sector commitment supported by government to move this forward.
That sounds about right. Sounds easy. We'll put some effort into action.
Intellectually, it's easy.
Intellectually, it's easy,
yeah. Obviously, politically, having the will. It's a matter of having the will to do the job.
Well, I certainly think for the people with Parkinson's, there is a will to get moving on this, and I see that in our community, and it's great. And now we need to just band together and do it.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, thank you very much for your time, Kevin. It's been really interesting. It's been very enlightening and a really positive sounding piece of research, which is great.
Well, we're enthusiastic about it, Jodette. We believe it can be done. So I think that's half the battle, is believing it can be done.
Yeah. No, that's good. And yeah, of course it can be done. We can put a man on the moon.
Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Okay then. No, thank you very much for your time today, and we look forward to seeing how this research progresses.
Thank you.